welcome back to Block TV, where, thank God, it is time for Blockchain and Booze, that weekly segment where we get the wheelers and dealers of the sphere and have them answer questions while trying to stay sober. Joining us today, lucky for us, of course, Auriel Ochayon, CEO at Zengo. Hello to you.
Hi there.
With us also, Jaguar Advagal, the head of Jaguar Lawyers. Hello to you.
Hi there.
Gal Hochber, returning hostage into the studio, co-founder and CEO at Clear. And we cannot do this without Matty Greenspan, senior analyst at eToro. Hello to you. Raise your glasses, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk about the 1% of the crypto sphere. Let me hit you with this article coming out of Crypto Globe. Bitcoin is concentrating in the hands of the already wealthy. Goodbye equality, and is hashtag defied, just a hashtag. Let me give you the story. Cryptocurrency investors holding between 1,000 and 10,000 BTC, that's approximately 8.5 million and 85 million, have seemingly bought the dip last year. As research shows, they've accumulated over 450,000 Bitcoins. Now, the research, which was conducted by blockchain analysis firm Dyer, further showed that over 26% of the flagship cryptocurrency circulating supply, that's 36 billion worth of BTC, is now in addresses that hold between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoins. So in other words, the 1%, one can say, of the crypto sphere is centralizing, I would argue, the bulk of the currency in their hands. So is this the decentralization version of the crypto sphere that everybody's been touting?
There is something that this research is not saying.
Tell me.
Whether these addresses are owned by people or owned by companies. Because, for example, when an exchange runs custody for their customers, they may have only one address.
You're saying maybe this is an exchange in one of the things?
We don't know. It's not precise in their report, or maybe it's in the small prints. But that could represent thousands, tens of thousands of people, and we don't really know that. So I think this needs to be dealt with grain of salt. Entirely
so. Okay, let's say it is, let's say it's not an exchange and actually it's concentrated in the hands of Finance Magnet. Sent an article today saying that, theorizing that those are actually, accounts of people, or it's whale action. Let's say it is, okay? We don't know for sure. Let's say it is. How key is decentralization? Well, first of all, what have we done with this?
I don't see what the big deal here is. In the current global economy, 26 of the richest people in the world own more wealth than half of the poorest people in the world.
Ain't that what we want to change?
Yes, but I don't think we're even at those levels yet.
Meaning what? As a society, as the world, as this market also won't be at that level?
No, meaning the crypto market is far more decentralized than the global economy. Yes.
Okay. Let's say though it is true, and it shows a trend. It does show a trend that it's heading that way.
There's a great explanation for that. Maybe it's not a justification, but a good explanation. First, we live in a capitalistic
that I agree with you entirely. We live in a capitalistic society, capitalism won.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To add to that, the fact that the cost of mining Bitcoin, for example, or any other coins which are similar to that, are expensive and are increasing. And take into account the fact as well that the value of Bitcoin, at least, has decreased in at least 2018. It's now increasing back onwards.
It's having a spring, to quote my friend Mati
exactly.
here.
So, if you have enough money to buy or make farms or mining farms, huge farms, or have a lot of computers going on and running and mining, it gives you a great advantage, like in any capitalistic environment otherwise. My friend here is right in the fact that the blockchain industry is less concentrated or more diverse or more dispersed than the general wealth, the fiat wealth.
And I'm wondering then, what are the, it seems to be like two trains of thought. There are the capitalists of cryptocurrency, and then there are the evangelists of the technology that would claim, okay, what about all, Bitcoin or cryptos will save the poor countries, will be the solution for Venezuela, will, finally change the equilibrium.
Bitcoin will not be the solution for Venezuela. Yeah. They cannot afford an average transaction fee of $3.50. I'm sorry. They need to rely on other cryptos. And I actually wrote an entire article yesterday called Hyper Bitcoinization, which basically there's a lot of enthusiasts out there in the crypto sphere who believe that Bitcoin should replace all money on Earth. And this is just simply not practical. People in Venezuela and in entire Latin America, I believe, are going more towards other cryptos, for example, Dash, which is gaining huge ground over there. The transaction fees are much more affordable
for people who have no money.
For them, yes, for microtransactions. So I believe that, yes, Bitcoin will very likely become, a bigger player where, when we're talking about global reserves, I believe that, there's central banks within the next 2 years that will hold Bitcoin in their vaults as a reserve currency. But it doesn't make sense, to completely replace. Monetary policy needs to be somewhat flexible. Okay, you cannot have the same monetary policy, the same inflation rate for a village in Africa as you do in Berlin. It just doesn't work out. So currencies at some point need to be a bit localized. And I believe that that's exactly what's happening in the crypto space at the moment.
No, I'm glad it's good that you wrote an article about it, but in many places in the crypto sphere, it is touted as the revolution money, as as what will beat the dollar finally, as what will, manage to geopolitically change the world. And there are many people who are on for this ride just for that matter. No? I'm looking at you because you're going to speak.
Yeah, so I think that the challenge with inequality is a deep one that's rooted in human culture, not in any specific currency. So the way you transact value doesn't mean who has what value.
Right.
It's not surprising that in a currency where the early adopters get a lot of gains, that there will be some inequality. But as Monty said, apologies. In the wider economy, the rich people have most of the money and they tend to get richer. I think the question is, Bitcoin is one of the best performing assets, in this year. Who can be part of that? Is it like real estate where you have to be very rich? Is it a VC deal where you have to be part of a club? No, nothing prevents anybody. It's high risk. I'm not recommending people invest, but the tools are more accessible. So that may, over tens of years, create more equality. Doesn't mean we're going to solve that tomorrow morning.
The barriers to entry are lower in that way. So it's very similar to the United States about 200 to 250 years ago, when it was the land of the opportunities. So everybody could get rich. However, not everybody did. Those who had the mind to make jeans, for example, or to give to make the train tracks, got the advantage, and they were there first, and they had the initiative and the ideas, and they have utilized the new land and the new opportunities. However, it's more of a free opportunities for everybody, but not everybody is as qualified and
I don't know if qualified is, not everybody has, the resources to play in that market, but the question is, what will this market become? Can it be both? Can it be, a technology to create new coins for failing countries and also an asset, or does it have to be defined as one?
Well, the thing is, this industry we have to remember, is still very, very young. We're just 10 years in, and we know already a revolution that has happened, and that took 20 years to get to mainstream. And the numbers that we have currently in crypto are just symbolic for now. I don't think we can extrapolate to any conclusion. It says if we were looking 20 years back and saying, oh, there's only 2 million people owning a computer and connecting to the internet. And today everyone is connected to the internet. So I'm sure we will look at that again in 10 years or 20 years, and that will look like an accident in the history of digital assets. And so I don't think this is, like Mate said, I don't think this is any news. It's typical of any revolution. You start with a small number, you get a happy few that get in because they manage to get it early because they understand technology and stuff like that. And then things get easier and more widely adopted, and the technology becomes cheaper. And then you get to a lot more adoption. So I think we're still in that phase where whatever you look, no matter how you look at it, it's still going to be a kind of elitist technology and very confidential numbers.
Very confidential numbers. It actually leads to something we're going to touch on in a second. But I wonder, just to look at this at this bit of news with all of you. There was a 60-minute report about 2 weeks ago about Bitcoin, which to me always spells, okay, in the United States it's mainstreaming, but that essentially was an MIT blockchain, head of the MIT blockchain development department, I believe, and if I'm butchering her title, I'm sorry. But she basically said at the end of that report, we will need to see, and this is from the people who are academically researched, maybe this thing will last and maybe it will not. We actually don't know at this point in time. It might just all disappear. Would you agree? I'm talking about Bitcoin. You do?
anything is possible. We can't
No,
know what's
I
going to
know,
happen
and
in the future.
philosophically,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is why Gal said that it's a high-risk asset, because we don't know.
But the chances are small for that, logically, only logically saying, I'm not a prophet, of course.
Obviously.
Because if the idea is smart, if it's based on math, not on values, which can change and are subjective, and not on principles.
And are very, very personal.
What if somebody
Right,
comes up
it's
with a supercomputer
logic.
that can 51% hash the hash rate?
Right, and that will kill it. That will.
Yeah, you know, there
dramatically
are
change
any
it.
number
Right?
of risks.
Yep, yep.
But you know what? I'm quite bullish, obviously, and you can see it in my portfolio. But we have to remember that anything is possible. And still, even though I'm quite bullish, it's still only a small percentage of my portfolio.
It's not the bulk of
It's
it.
not the bulk.
Okay.
I agree
It's a
with you.
high-risk
The only
asset.
mathematical tool, better tool, which would be the hypercomputers, etc., would be able to maybe overcome or conquer a mathematical concept as this.
Please,
Yeah,
please.
From a more macro perspective, I think a good question to ask is how many companies have been around for 50 years? How many countries have been around for 200 years? Things fall apart.
How many currencies have been around for?
Right. So you know, there's the U.S. dollar. That's great.
That's
But there's
currently
other
control-
countries
yeah.
where their currency is not as stable. So that's not an easy task, even if you're using the same technology as always and the same old boring stuff. I think something that's interesting about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in general is that the people who own it stand up to benefit from it surviving and staying successful. And actually the off ramps are kind of hard. And so something that makes this something that's can be more survivable than a company or than a country is that the points that allow it to fail are more distributed. And so I believe that there are reasons for this to
actually
survive more.
last.
But I don't think it has product market fit as a product yet. People don't look at Bitcoin and say, yes, this is what I want to do right now, and that's true for anything that you build. And so once we hit that, it's a different discussion.
No, entirely. I want to, apropos that 60-minute piece, it was the first time that somebody who knows me actually and has no clue in anything, I all of a sudden got a text going, so Bitcoin? from the States.
They're going to be doing that a lot more.
Yeah.
You have to make the difference. Like the West mainstream right now is the messaging. People heard about the brand, about the name, about the process, about the hype, about the price,
exactly.
about the scams, about these things. The economical reality is still very confidential. We're talking about a couple of $100 billion of market caps. We're talking about maybe $1 trillion traded a year. It's nothing compared to the economical asset in the world. And I think we have to make a difference between the direction of the industry and the typical assets. Will Bitcoin be there in 10 years? I don't know. There are many risks. Some are systemic, some are not. Some are related to human errors. We don't know. And we have to think about also whether financial assets will one day be digital. And if we believe that software is eating the world, there is all the chances to believe that every single financial asset will be digital.
That I will agree with. I think that at the end of the day we are going full digital, and and paper, just paper, is dead. But that's just me. That said, as we said, we don't know where it's going, and there are many ways that it can evolve, and there's a lot of at stake when it comes to reputation of the sphere, which leads me to our second item, one of my favorites this week, Kik's new legal fund. Is it a shameless money grab or the path the cryptos break out?
You like that?
Someone's laughing.
Who wrote that headline?
Oh my God!
They've invested
very
$5 million
smart
of their
man.
own.
Hold on. Kik, the
Yeah.
embattled messaging startup behind the Kin cryptocurrency, I'm just reminding everybody, Canadians by the way, is now crowdsourcing donations to help fund its legal battle with US regulators. Of course, the website that they set up for crowdfunding is called defendcryptofund.org. Or defendcrypto.org. It's said to be tailored specifically to fight, that's according to them, to fight the US Securities and Exchange Commission on behalf, I'm quoting, of the future of crypto in the United States. So far, Kik itself claims it has contributed $5 million to the fund. Some big names are supposedly contributing more money. Others in the sphere are calling foul. Let me represent those for a second, okay? Kik, just to remind everybody of the famed ICO phase, raised a ton of money.
98 million.
Thank you. 98 million. I mean, the first thing that came up to my mind was, really? You need help now? But 98 million, which I'm assuming, or as they claim, went into research and development.
Yep.
They now have this website for crowdfunding that is very combative in its language. But really, what does this do to a sphere? Because is this the thing that will break through to the SEC? They want help fighting the SEC in court. Or is this something that everybody should shy away from?
So first, sorry, go
No,
ahead. Ladies first.
No, not because of the lady, but
it's a great
lawyer.
topic, so we all want to speak. That's right.
Well, it's a legal arena. The point is.
Yes, we have a legal
the
expert.
lawyer.
Seriously.
Yeah.
The point is that legal fights cost a lot of money, thanks to us, of course, the advocates, the lawyers.
And I'm all for paying you.
Great, thank you very much. I'll send you the bill afterwards. And it costs a lot. And usually I wouldn't consult my clients to go on a legal fight unless what you gain, even if you win, isn't worth the cost of fighting. And I think the point is not that they need more money or that. I believe they're rich enough by themselves. However, you need a lot of funds in order to make a very long process versus the SEC.
True, but
That's
these
the
are
point.
people who raised $98 million less than 2 years ago.
If I may, I don't think this is about the money.
Yeah.
I don't think they do it for that reason. I mean, obviously,
You're
it
buying.
matters.
Okay,
Yes.
shoot.
It matters.
Yes.
I think what they want is to create a precedent,
Yep.
and they understand that they cannot create a precedent by being alone against an institution like the SEC. They want to, and you can look at their site. There are logos, and they're trying to gather people around them. They want to create a movement.
Yep.
So they found a way to do it by this crowdfunding. They can have obviously funded it themselves. And on one side, I want to be with them, right? I want to be with this movement. I want something to move at the regulation level, because it looks like if nothing happens, it's going to take forever, if anything. But on the other side, I want also to say, well, guys, you know what you stepped into, right? You did something at a time. You had some judgment, and you threaded risky waters. So on the other side, it's like kind of, all right, now what we have to make right something that was likely wrong, and it's very hard to find a straight line between those two things. And so I don't know if it's a right cause, but I think directionally it's an interesting phenomenon.
I find their plight, and it's fascinating. They basically want to go to court with the SEC and redefine the Howey test, okay? Which actually, lofty cause, right?
Yep.
It should be.
Yep.
1946.
Reinterpret, actually.
Reinterpret, okay?
Right.
Exactly, reinterpret. From that to, hold on, they have a very bad reputation. These are people who arrived apropos of big conferences at the boom of the ICO with Lamborghinis. Okay, this has been researched. And now, I'm not buying this entirely, that's one. Is this the way to go and fight about the SEC? Clearly, the end goal is something that we all want, but how would we gather everybody around one, you want to talk.
Well, so
I'll shut up.
I think that the thing to look at is that this is how the system is supposed to work. So regulators have opinions, but then if you disagree with them because you're doing something different, you're supposed to fight them in court and have the justice system or the legislative system decide the result. And so this isn't fighting the SEC, it's putting a claim to what you think policy should be and then trying to do that. But creating policy is expensive and hard. And so I think that's not surprising. We've seen this with SCPA, we've seen this with the European privacy laws. People do this all the time, and sometimes it's not the people we like the most that do this, people who have the most to lose. So I think there's two discussions. One is, should we do this? Should we rally behind this happening? I think the space could use more clarity from regulators or from the judicial system. And this would probably create it. Whether it's going to be good or bad, I don't know, but it's going to be good. I think another discussion is Kin and Kik themselves. And I think, are they doing it for the right reasons? I don't know. Doesn't mean it's going to be the wrong outcome. I don't know if you should support or not. They might come with Lamborghinis, but they can still hire the same lawyers as everybody else. So you may end up being a good outcome by somebody not great doing it. Doesn't sound like their upside from the fund itself is very high, because they have most of the money inside.
That is true. I'm wondering, though, it is dividing the sphere very much. You see pros and cons are people saying, oh, please, you lost me at the word kid. Okay? Those are tweets that we saw.
I did not see those tweets, by the way.
But no one else is taking the
what
chance.
I saw was Ryan Selkis, the head of Masari Crypto, completely putting his backing behind this.
They've got a lot of big names that are backing it, and they also, have who was it also? Fenton, I think. Just voices that are heard within the sphere going, really?
So, as someone who invested in Kin,
You did.
I did.
Good.
Okay. My initial instinct was, oh crap, That's where my money is going. Are you kidding me? To fight the SEC in court? Oh my gosh. And this is going to take so much longer to actually get my investment to actually perform something. After thinking about it for a while, so wait a second. They got a point here, because they cannot really move forward until this is cleared up. Everything that the SEC was displaying to them was, we're about to shut you down.
Yeah.
So by them...
now the SEC say, you guys are security, okay? You are security, that's what you are. I'm sorry, stop playing.
Now, as far as the white paper that I read, okay, this is not a security. This is a classic utility token. Now, what the SEC has tried to do until now is they're trying to use case law to dictate policy, right? They're trying to say, okay, here are some clear-cut cases, right? And then everybody's going to have to figure out what happened in the middle. So some cases they said, okay, these guys are frauds, we're shutting them down. Some cases they said, okay, these guys were unregistered securities. Okay, come register as a security and pay a fine. There was one company that they said, okay, one project they said, you know what, you're not a security, go have fun, right? But there's thousands of other projects that lie in the gray area, and we don't have clarity about those. Now, the way that I see Kin, this is a utility token. This is not a security. This is not something they've raised money to create a new currency that's to be used within their platform. That's not something that should even be defined as something that's an investment inside of a company where something is going to rise in value based on others' performance.
The problem, though, is that this asset is traded. And as such, it does accrue in value, can also lose value.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there is a case where you can say, well, you can claim whatever you want in terms of utility, not utility, but it does have a traded value. It's not like an air mile of a company where the only utility is within the network of the air mile, or maybe some partners, but you cannot actually buy it or sell it. So I think there is a case, and I think there is two aspects to this movement. There is whether we want the industry to move forward and fight the SEC to get things clarified. And I think this is a worthwhile effort because things need to move forward. And there is the case about Kik and Kin itself, which can be debated. It happens to be around them, so be it. Right. But I'm not sure we should mix both. I think both have value. I like the idea of movement that makes things moving forward. I'm not so sure about Kin and Kik, and I have not invested and for exactly the reasons that are happening right now, because it was not clear to me. But I do understand that this is happening right now, and I think there are more reasons to back it up rather than not.
Look, the argument, I think we all agree, is lofty. At the end of the day, and we can all say the SEC has been dragging its feet ad nauseum, okay? So,
but let's go back to the test itself, to the Howey test itself that they're trying. The Howey test has declared about 4 criteria to decide whether a token or anything is a security, right, as a token.
And was actually, in 1946.
Yeah, which was a very long time.
We're in 2019.
Exactly, it was a very long time ago, and it's really it's time for refreshment on that procedure and those decisions. Entirely. And I think it mainly related to the basic asset, but to which the security or the paper or the contract relates to. It needs to be an asset to refer to, with a central decision or a central management or whatever. There's several criteria for that, and it's time to challenge that and redefine it and apply to new platforms. That's one thing. And the movement is indeed in place. However, the messenger or the one who carries the flag for that might not be the smartest or the most honest messenger that we could find, but it's probably the richest.
No, and I think, I will go with, and I'm converted in that respect, if the outcome is one that moves things and makes changes, then
everyone will applaud.
Maybe the messenger ain't that important, but let's see. Again, still it is dividing the sphere. There were for and against and saying, come on, we're not buying this kind of effort from them.
My only wish in that movement is that it was not just Kin. I mean, they have supporters, but that there were more companies with tokens moving forward in that
and saying we need clarification.
Like other companies that did some ICOs that are high profile because they are going to, I'm sorry?
Thousands.
Yeah, there are thousands of candidates and many of them are high profile. Definitely have the legal resources to fight this.
A lot of people might want to shy away from the name ICO. I think maybe one of the reasons behind that is that ICO is kind of a bad word.
So the reason that I invested in Kin was simply that when introducing a new form of money, it helps that you have a already active and loyal user base. Kik has 300 million active users, and it's the same reason that I feel that the Telegram ICO is, it just has a huge potential. Telegram, on the other hand, seeing what's happening with the rest of the market, they said, okay, we've got enough money from private investors. So basically, we all lost out on the Telegram because of what's happening with Kin.
No, it's a good point. And all of this, though, may be entirely non-consequential because of big players in the sphere who are threatening our might, but definitely coming into it. And that would be, of course, our friend Zuckerberg. Facebook is entering the cryptosphere, but may have a major flaw. And this is actually a fascinating one. Facebook's native cryptocurrency, which of course we all heard about in the last, we've been hearing rumors, but something was confirmed via the BBC. Facebook's native cryptocurrency, which would purportedly seek to disrupt or bypass banking networks in order to remove financial barriers and lessen consumer costs, will reportedly launch in 2020. But in its recent report, Dyer, a research company, suggested that the coin will face demographic challenges as the social media giant's user base is aging. There's a graph actually attached, there we go, to this research, and that is the Facebook user age distribution. As you can see, the people who are more in the field of Facebook are actually, I would say, of the persuasion of my age group. I'm the oldest person in the room right now. And there's purportedly not enough awareness about digital currencies among the aging user base. I'll be the first one to say, my mother is far more prolific than I am on social media. She's 85. The idea, the idea of digital currency to her is, are you kidding? Now, do we think that's going to stand as a problem, as a demographic problem for Facebook if they launch what they currently call Globalcoin? Sorry, I had to do that because it's so maniacal. You got me. Sorry, this Globalcoin.
Global.
So Globalcoin.
They are global. Like it or not. Like it or not, they have millions of users all over the countries and world.
They have 2.3 billion. 2.3 billion. Well, Bitcoin right now has 20 to 30 million people playing with it. Okay, it's the trumpet. Go.
Two things about that analysis. It might have been that the people who wrote it. I don't know. I didn't figure out exactly.
Yeah.
Do you remember that Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram?
I do.
Those have significantly other types of different
demographics. More than a Facebook.
Exactly. So yes, Facebook the app has a different demographic, but Facebook has additional other assets in the space.
Yeah.
Number
Instagram,
two, people, something
example.
that I don't know if everybody's been to India recently, but when you walk around India and it says internet.org on your Wi-Fi that Facebook is rolling out internet to third world countries, and Africa, 80% of the people there are mobile and connecting into. Are those the same demographics? Because if you're in the US, maybe you don't necessarily need Globalcoin because your banking system is great. But if you're in Africa and Southeast Asia, you're going onto the internet for the first time because Facebook got you on the internet and you're using one of the Facebook apps, maybe you're a good target, and then it's called Globalcoin. Yep. It's not called US coin, it's not called Weird coin.
Do you think it's going to kill Bitcoin? I'm not kidding.
No.
Why?
Because, first of all, we don't know anything about Globalcoin yet. We don't know how it's going to run. They didn't release a white paper or anything like that.
Nothing. We have a BBC report and slivers of rumors.
Leaks,
it's a tight
leaks and rumors. The New York Times, Bloomberg, they all got together and spoke with sources.
I'm with you.
We don't know. Okay, Facebook coin, Globalcoin is a total wild card at this point. We don't know how it's going to interact with Bitcoin or not interact with Bitcoin. If it's going to be traded on exchanges.
Why would it want to?
And more importantly, how decentralized is it? Is Zuckerberg really going to create a decentralized currency that he's not raking in on every transaction?
I doubt it, but will it matter to people if it becomes ever so easy? Will it matter? That's the thing.
So Facebook has done this before. There was a way they were Facebook coins. They've done experiments in the space before. It wasn't so easy for them. So
well, it's not. It doesn't seem very easy for them at the moment. From what I read in the article, they're looking to raise capital. And that's just ridiculous to me. Facebook is looking to raise capital.
We were talking about the Kik Fund and $100 million, right?
When you invest in that, it makes you much more involved. It's not that they need that money; it's that they need the involvement.
I have another theory about it. I think that they want to look decentralized.
Or it'll be fiat-backed, and that's the capital that sits in the bank accounts behind the scenes.
But think about it for a second. Who gets scared by this line? Facebook launches Globalcoin. I'm sorry, I'm going to do this again. If Facebook launches Globalcoin, they have 2.3 billion users, okay? don't they instantly become the next bank forget the America for a second.
It's an issue of trust, okay? If you're using Globalcoin, you need to trust Mark Zuckerberg with your data.
2.3 billion
You do it
people
already
do.
by having an
2.3 billion do.
That's fine. That's fine. Bitcoin was never, as far as I understand, it was never intended to replace the entire system. I think we said this already. It was
I know, but there are people who claim that
it's
they
there
want
to provide a decentralized alternative, and I believe that it always will.
And don't you think that Facebook, though, will provide a centralized alternative that's easier for people?
Well, that's great.
Like
If they can create value like that,
It
and
scares the
that's
crap out of
wonderful.
it.
I'm happy for them.
It scares
I'm happy
me.
for everybody who uses it that would never even think about using Litecoin for their international transactions. Great for them. They're saving money. They have something that's more user-friendly. Wonderful.
Look how
What's
easy
the problem?
it is.
What's the problem with that?
There's something called in China called Alipay, which is everybody has it when you buy.
They don't even use
Exactly.
paper anymore.
Right.
Nobody uses
It's the
paper.
10-cent
Yeah.
ecosystem.
It's the Alibaba, and they actually
Yeah.
it's not a cryptocurrency, but it's basically Alibaba being a bank in the sense it's the
Exactly.
largest money market fund in the world, and it is fully fiat backed. It's a digital currency run by them.
They bring
And
value.
They do the
They
reconciliation.
bring value to everybody who uses it.
And when you buy not falafel, but whatever you buy on
I
the
know,
street
but I'm
in
clearly
Beijing,
the only,
you're paying
I'm
with
clearly
Alipay.
the only socialist in the room. I'm kidding.
No, you can, it will always be an alternative, but just imagine how easy that would be for Facebook to offer. If you want to pay for your ads or whatever you pay for in Facebook, you get like in the beginning 12% or 20% discount if you use the G coin or the global coin
Yeah.
or whatever.
Oh my God, you gave it a nickname. That's great. Yes.
I think
It's
if
just
you
it would
promise,
be so easy to
I
get
think
it
it's
to
worse.
everybody.
If you promise to integrate Globalcoin into your e-commerce store
For
as an
example.
acceptable way
Yeah.
of purchase,
You get
we will give you
promoted.
free ads.
or just
That's much
be
more
high on the
compelling.
list of being whatever
Yeah.
ads. Could be so easy for them, and the
It
alternative.
could be so easy,
and
but
the
it also
alternative
wields
will
a
always
lot of
happen.
power. As when you said, who's going to trust, all that with people are. That's the,
Yeah.
one can argue that Facebook has basically trained people to give up entirely on their privacy. And they accept the fact that that's it. There's one person who knows everything about them, will manipulate, well, not one entity. You wanted
what
to
you
say
get.
that
Yeah,
because
I
I
just
think you're
wanted to
being
say
very
that
polite
this
in
is
European.
this is part of a bigger movement. That's not about Facebook doing something. It's about social networks in general trying to find their next leverage
The
for
next,
growth.
the next
So
growth.
if you're looking Facebook, so we were talking about Kin, which is like a small player, but Facebook is
Telegram.
working on it. Telegram is obviously
What-
working
yeah.
on it. Kakao in Asia, and all the big networks in Asia are already in it. Line is on it. And what those guys have managed to master until now is media monetization. They own that. And their next level for growth is payment networks, which is something they don't own yet, they don't control yet. For now, they rely on other people rails.
The current payment networks just made it so easy with their transaction fees.
So they were relying on Visa, they're relying on banks, and well, they say, well, if we own those people, privacy scandals aside, those people attention, well, maybe we can use that attention to create our proprietary payment network, payment rails, and save 2-3% profit out of that, and by enabling that, creating the next leverage of growth. So I think this is what they are, the way they think about it. Now, will it kill Bitcoin? I don't think so. I think there will be multiple payment networks, and they will have different properties. We don't know how Facebook Coin or whatever its name is going to be used, or Kakao Coin is going to be used. What we see already in Asia is those networks have not killed other payment networks. They've been built on top of those.
That said, it's the centralization of power within. I think that the whole notion of decentralization is kind of a pipe dream that is being used a lot as a buzzword within this sphere. Well, whether it's good or bad, put that aside, I think it's a pipe dream at the end of the day. No? If, ultimately there'll be power organized, because Facebook will become then a really, really big bank, a very, one of the biggest,
we don't know what they're going to
if-
control. We don't know what they're going to control. We don't
Yeah,
know
I mean,
how
people
decentralized
were
it's
pretty
going
sure
to
that Google Glass was going to be like ruling the world and completely displace smartphones. That never worked out.
Okay, there's that point. But we have social networks nowadays, one can argue provably, that are defining politics around the world. So they have that level of control. They have that level of
And a lot of money transfers via Facebook, ads and everything. They transfer a lot of money, unlike
It's a
Google
lot of
Glass,
power.
which had
That's the
nothing to
thing.
do with money in the first place.
That said, folks, we got to talk about crypto's fake news problem. Mati, don't laugh.
What about it?
Okay, CoinDesk. Scammers boosted the price of Bitcoin SV. I'm quoting CoinDesk, okay? BSV this week by publishing a fake news alert purporting to show that BSV's creator, yes, Craig Wright, is also Bitcoin's creator. Masquerading as the Chinese news site Coinbull, the bogus alert claimed that Craig Wright had transferred Bitcoin BTC from the so-called Satoshi wallets to prove his identity. The result, there were those who claimed that the result was a $60 boost in the Bitcoin SV price in less than 10 hours. WTF question mark is what comes to mind. Now look, this is on the heels of about a week and a half ago, Mr. Wright went on and, patented himself as, which by the way, all of us can now go together and patent it. And the fact that we supposedly are Satoshi Nakamoto or Bitcoin. Yeah, we can do that. It doesn't mean bupkis, but that said, it's still, right after that, there was a 200% spike at BSV. I do see a correlation, unless, that said, fake news, this report in the Chinese news site Coinbull, BS. It didn't happen.
Nope. So I think it's really funny that we spent time talking about fighting the SEC, but the body who we would look for to take care of this thing is the SEC. And I think that does highlight the importance of regulatory bodies in handling securities sent to sell to consumers.
Yep.
Thank you in that respect. Do we think that there's a direct correlation between that bit of news and the spike? Wait. No, Mati, I know his answer. I'm looking at you guys.
I think it doesn't matter if there's a correlation or not. The point is that the SEC or any other regulator needs to put the lines and the criteria into what you publish and what you don't, what you could and what you couldn't. That's first. Second, people will always look for any hints or anything to go and bullishly buy even stocks,
there's the
even
argument
shares.
that finance magnates on April Fool's Day came out with a report saying that Bitcoin's mooning. And ever since then, a day later, we've entered the spring market. I mean, there is this argument as well.
Yeah. As long as you release news that's, the CEO is resigning, for example.
Right.
That could drop the shares and you can make a very good trades on the shares that way. If it's not true, you should go to jail or at least, have a punishment for that. So the point is that people will look for good news to buy and for bad news to short on it, if possible, to short or to sell.
How do we know it's true? Okay.
The point is the truthfulness or not truthfulness of the news by themselves. Whether it has spiked the value or decreased the value, doesn't matter. The point is that you need to publish only things that are true.
Yeah, honey, I know.
It's naive, yeah, I know. But these are what
I love the idea.
Well, yeah, but if you have a fine of $5 million, for example, from the likes of the SECs, for example, of the world, you would reconsider.
Folks, I want you to raise your glasses, even though we didn't get another round of alcohol. Let's raise our glasses. Yes, Benny, the blockchain bartender, as we send this off, please. I think that the man has deserved and owned his whiskey. Folks,
there we go. There's the blockchain, Benny, the blockchain bartender.
There's the blockchain bartender. That's our next startup. I just want to say it's a very profitable ICO. You have been wonderful, ladies and gentlemen of the blockchain and booze sphere. Raise your glasses to G-Coin. I'm kidding.
That was my name.
Maybe another company.
That was mine.
That was yours. Here we go. And have a fabulous, fabulous weekend. Thank you. That was it for us on BLOCKTV. We'll be right back.